Long before the archive rose from stone and story, there was Vaelora. It stood where stars fell into the sea, a sanctum of flame, memory, and moonlight. The first keepers lit their lanterns there, not with oil or fire, but with the breath of their names. They walked not to guard the past, but to carry it forward, lantern to lantern, hand to hand. Then the vault closed. No one knew how. No one remembered why. Only that its light faded, and its name became legend. But memory does not sleep forever. In the dark beneath the waves, a tremor stirred. Lanterns once sealed began to flicker. A vault long shut began to breathe. And far away, a skiff cut across silver water, its sail full of story. Caela reached the edge of the charted world just before dusk. The sea turned glassy, and the sky wore its twilight cloak, neither light nor dark, as if holding its breath. Her sail caught a strange wind, one that didn't ripple the water but moved it, slowly, like memory uncoiling. She stood at the bow, map in hand. The mark for Vaelora was so faint it almost vanished in the failing light. A tiny curl of ink, like a spiral, like a flame. The tide watcher's lantern rested near her feet, its glow dim but steady. Another light pulsed from her satchel, the shard from Tyrion's lantern. She carried no fire of her own anymore. Only borrowed light, stitched with stories. "I'm close," she said softly. "I can feel it." The skiff slowed without wind. The air around her thickened, as if space itself grew wary. Then, with a ripple-like breath, the mist parted. A spire rose from the sea. Not a tower, but a memory made solid, weathered stone etched with ancient sigils, lanterns embedded like eyes watching the horizon. Around it, nothing, just sea, just silence. Vaelora. Caela's pulse quickened. She guided the skiff toward the outcrop. As she stepped ashore, her lantern flared briefly, then stilled. Her boots touched stone that had not known footsteps in centuries. The vault waited. Not locked. Not open. Waiting to be remembered. Caela's boots echoed through the hollow chamber as she descended the spiral steps within the Vaelora spire. The air grew colder, scented with salt and stone dust. Her lantern flickered against the walls, casting shadows of old inscriptions she couldn't yet read. At the base of the stair, she found a hall lined with lanterns. Some cracked, some extinguished, some glowing faintly with forgotten names. As she moved forward, one of them pulsed. She paused, then reached toward it. The lantern responded with warmth, and an image flickered into her mind, a vision of a young girl running through floodwaters, holding a lantern against a rising tide. Her eyes were filled with fear, but her hands were steady. Behind her, a dome of light crumbled. A name rose on Caela's tongue. Selling. The vision faded. The lantern dimmed. A voice stirred behind her. "You saw her." Caela spun around. A figure stood in the archway, barefoot, soaked to the knees, silent and small. A child. The same one from the vision? No. But she bore the same look of quiet strength. "I did," Caela said gently. She was holding back the flood. The child nodded. She stepped into the hall, water trailing in her wake. She pointed toward the center of the chamber where a great circular door stood, half sunken into the stone. Caela approached slowly. Runes ringed the door like waves. Her lantern pulsed, but did not open it. "She's inside?" Caela asked. The girl nodded. "Are you her?" The girl looked down at her hands and then shook her head. She pointed instead at the lantern Caela carried. "Part of her," Caela murmured. You're what remains. A keeper's light didn't always die with them. Sometimes, it chose to stay behind, tied to place, to purpose. This girl was no ghost, no illusion. She was the drowned flame. And with her, the vault might yet be opened. The drowned flame stood silently beside the great circular door, her gaze steady and unreadable. Caela knelt before the runes carved into the stone, brushing aside years of dust and sea grit. Her lantern pulsed again, this time with a rhythmic glow that mimicked a heartbeat. The child stepped forward and placed her hand on the door. Nothing happened. But when Caela placed her lantern beside the girl's hand, the door shimmered, its runes lighting up like the surface of a tide pool catching first morning light. A low groan echoed through the chamber as the door slowly began to turn inward. Beyond it, a staircase spiraled downward into darkness laced with crystal. Caela lifted her lantern and descended, the child at her side. What they found was not a vault in the traditional sense. It was a city, or the memory of one. Lanterns floated mid-air, anchored to nothing but humming with gentle light. Bridges arched over still canals. Towers leaned like reaching hands. All of it was constructed from translucent stone, glowing faintly as if carved from starlight and coral. "Vaelora," Caela whispered. The girl nodded. "It remembers." They passed murals on every wall, scenes of ancient keepers bearing flames through storm and ruin, singing to awaken mountain fires, lighting oceans from shipbound altars. But at the city's heart stood something darker, a shattered spire surrounded by a ring of extinguished lanterns. Caela approached. Her own flame flickered. This was the center? The girl spoke for the first time. It was the vault. And what broke it? The girl looked at her with wide, hollow eyes. A keeper. The shattered spire groaned with ancient weight as Caela stepped closer. The drowned flame lingered near its edge, gaze fixed on the ring of extinguished lanterns. Then came the sound of boots on stone. Caela turned, heart tight. Ashwake stood at the far end of the chamber, robed in salt-tattered layers. His lantern, still cracked, still burning, hung low at his side. Behind him, shadow moved like smoke clinging to bone. "So," he said, his voice low and rough, "you found what we buried." Caela raised her lantern, the flame flaring. "You knew about Vaelora." "I was its guardian," he replied. "Before memory turned against me." He walked slowly along the arc of dead lanterns, tracing their bases with his fingers. "We called this the Circle of Last Flame. Each one bore the light of a founder. Each one," he paused, "extinguished by the same hand." "Yours?" Ashwake smiled faintly. "No. But I watched it happen. And I did nothing." The drowned flame's eyes locked with his. In her gaze was sorrow, not fear. Recognition. "She remembers you," Caela said. Ashwake knelt before the vault's heart. The light in her was once mine to protect. I failed her. And the flame scattered. He looked up. "The vault can be mended. But not by me. Only by one who has carried memory through fire, and not burned by it." Caela tightened her grip on the lantern. "You want me to restore it. I want you to choose." He stood. The vault's light must rise again. But it cannot shine with only what was. It must be fed by what will be. New stories. New keepers. "And you?" she asked. "I'll stay here. Where my oath was broken. Until I've earned the right to speak my name again." Ashwake stepped back into the shadow, and for a moment, the cracked lantern at his side glowed warm, then dimmed. The drowned flame took Caela's hand, and the vault trembled. That night, the vault responded to the stars. A rare celestial alignment, the ecliptic flame, cast a red-gold arc across the Vaeloran sky. Lanterns throughout the broken city shimmered to life, flickering like hearts remembering how to beat. Caela stood with the drowned flame at the highest tower's edge, overlooking the still canals. The moonlight fell through the crystal, casting pale glyphs on the walls. The girl pointed toward the center spire, where a fractured seal pulsed faintly. "It's waking," Caela murmured. She made her way back to the central vault. Ashwake remained nearby, seated with his back against a ruined column, his cracked lantern beside him. "The vault answers the sky," Caela said. Ashwake didn't open his eyes. "It always did." The ecliptic flame was the ceremony of ignition, the moment new keepers received their names. "We haven't seen one in generations." "Why now?" "Because you brought light back." The drowned flame approached the seal and placed her hand on it. A sound, like 1,000 voices whispering in harmony, rose from the stones. The seal brightened, revealing a spiral staircase descending into the deepest chamber beneath Vaelora. Caela turned to Ashwake. "Is this the heart of the vault?" He nodded. "The Hall of Names." With her lantern in hand, Caela descended into the dark, the drowned flame beside her. The passage was silent, thick with breathless time. At the bottom, they stepped into a vast chamber. Carved into every wall, from floor to dome, were names, thousands, maybe millions, glowing softly in different hues. Some bright, some dim, some flickering out. Caela approached one fading name and touched it. Her lantern pulsed, and the name flared briefly before going dark. "They are disappearing," she whispered. The drowned flame pointed toward a dark section of wall, completely blank. Caela understood. New names must be added. New flames kindled. Or the vault's memory would collapse. The ecliptic flame was not just a sign. It was a warning. Caela stared at the blank expanse of stone, her lantern's flame wavering in the vastness of the chamber. Around her, the names etched into the walls pulsed like distant stars, alive, but fading. The drowned flame walked ahead, bare feet silent on the crystal floor. She paused beside one of the empty sections and raised her hand. A shimmer passed across the stone, but no letters formed. "It won't write for me," Caela said. Ashwake's voice echoed from behind them. "It doesn't respond to will. Only to story." Caela turned to him. He stood at the chamber's edge, his cracked lantern casting fractured shadows. "What do you mean?" she asked. "The names here weren't carved," Ashwake said. "They were remembered. Spoken by others. Felt. Lived. You don't place a name here. You offer a life to the vault, and it chooses." Caela looked back at the blank wall. "Then it needs more than memory. It needs belief." She took the lantern in both hands. "I remember Marinol, Tyrion, Solon. Names that gave me light." One by one, she whispered their stories into the chamber. As she spoke, faint glimmers appeared beside her. Echoes of each keeper's flame, their silhouettes emerging from the stone like smoke rising from old fire. The drowned flame added her voice, high and soft, like wind across water. She spoke no words, but her melody wove between Caela's tales. And the wall began to respond. Letters etched themselves in light, slow but sure. New names, not just the ones Caela had spoken, but others now awakened by her words. Ones the vault had not heard in centuries. Then, a single flame sparked into being on the floor at Caela's feet. Her own. The light rose, steady and clear, and carved itself into the wall, sealer of the archive. Keeper of carried flame. Ashwake bowed his head. The Vault of Lanterns was remembering again. And it would not forget. Later, in the lantern-lit quiet of the hall, Ashwake remained by the edge of the memory chamber. Caela found him staring not at the flames, but at the space where names had vanished. Those few the vault had lost forever. They were mine, he said without turning. The ones that faded. Caela approached slowly. You tried to save them. I failed them, he replied. Each was a keeper I mentored. Each fell when I began to doubt the flame. His hand went to his chest where his own lantern had once burned bright. I broke the first rule, I stopped believing the light could carry through the dark. And doubt is as heavy as forgetting. Caela sat beside him. You're still here. Ashwake's laugh was bitter. What else is left for me? A chance, Caela said softly. Not for redemption. For remembrance. The drowned flame joined them, watching Ashwake silently. She held out her hand. In it was a small flicker of light, not hers, not Caela's. A remnant. Ashwake's eyes widened. That's, Caela nodded. It never truly left. Part of your flame still lives. The vault kept it. Ashwake took the light, hands trembling. What do I do with it? You carry it, Caela said. And when the time comes, you pass it on. He closed his hands around the spark. For the first time, his cracked lantern glowed whole for a breath. It faded, but the warmth lingered. In the Hall of Names, silence gave way to song. The next morning, mist clung to the city of Vaelora like an old shawl. Caela stood on one of the upper terraces, staring into the pale light. The drowned flame stood beside her, silent as always. Something had changed in the vault. Since the Hall of Names awakened, more of the city began to stir. Lanterns flickered on balconies. Echoes of old voices drifted like birdsong through alleyways. But so did something else. Silence. Not the calm kind. A silence that pressed. That waited. Caela felt it in the back of her thoughts, a quiet that wasn't absence, but resistance. Parts of the city refusing to remember. She brought it up with Ashwake later that morning. He listened, then nodded grimly. It's begun. What hers? The fade. He crouched beside a shallow basin of water where names had once shimmered like ripples. Now, it was black glass. There is a kind of forgetting that eats backwards. It doesn't just erase what was. It replaces it with what never should have been. Caela felt her stomach tighten. Can it be stopped? Only if the forgotten choose to be remembered. They returned to the Hall of Names. Several names had gone dim again. One had vanished. The drowned flame reached out. But her hand passed through the stone. Caela understood. We're losing them. Ashwake stepped forward. Then we need to find the source. The one keeper whose forgetting began all of this. Who? Ashwake's expression was unreadable. Me. The revelation settled between them like a veil of fog. Ashwake, the first to forget, the first spark lost. The source of the fade. Caela didn't speak for a long time. She simply looked at him, this fractured man who once stood at the center of the flame. Then we begin with you. Ashwake nodded. The vault holds the echoes of my name. We must find them. all of them. They descended again into Vaelora's heart, guided by the drowned flame. The girl stopped at the threshold of an old, sealed chamber, its door bound in iron symbols that glowed faintly. "She knows this place," Ashwake whispered. "It was where I trained the youngest keepers." Caela studied the door. "The children of flame." "Yes. Those not yet named, but chosen." The drowned flame raised her hand. Her palm shimmered, and the seal broke. The chamber beyond opened with a low breath of warm air. Inside, rows of empty lantern cradles lined the walls. Dust lay thick, but the silence was gentle here, more like sleep than forgetting. In the center stood a pedestal, and on it, a single lantern. Whole. Lit. Ashwake stepped back. "That's not mine." "No," Caela said. "It's hers." The drowned flame approached and touched the lantern. It pulsed, and her form brightened, not just flame now, but flesh and memory. A voice, clear and strong, filled the chamber. "My name is Selin." The child's true name. She turned to Caela. "You carried me when I couldn't speak. You listened when I couldn't remember. Now I will carry the vault." Ashwake sank to one knee. "You're the keeper now." Selin reached out to him. "And you are forgiven." The chamber brightened. For the first time, the vault had chosen a new keeper, not from legacy, but from resilience. Selin's flame was not a memory, she was the beginning of the next chapter. And the vault of lanterns began to sing. The vault's song lingered long after the chamber had stilled. Its tone was not music in the ordinary sense, but a harmony of presence, of stories heard and held, names restored, futures ignited. Caela stood in the glow of Selin's lantern, watching as its light touched the dormant cradles along the walls. One by one, they flickered to life. Not with fire, but with memory waiting to be told. Selin walked between them, her steps sure and silent. She no longer trailed the sea. Her voice was her own. Her flame, steady. Caela turned to Ashwake. He stood watching with a reverence that hadn't touched his face in decades. "You can return to the archive," she said softly. Ashwake shook his head. "No. My place is here. Among what I forgot. I'll keep the vault now, with her. She begins what I failed to finish." Caela looked down at her lantern. Its flame flickered softly, no longer urgent. "Then I go." "To where?" he asked. Caela looked to the stairway that led out, beyond the vault, beyond Vaelora. "To light what hasn't yet been lit." Selin approached her, eyes bright. "Will I see you again?" Caela crouched beside her. "You won't need to. You carry the light now. That means you'll feel every flame that finds its way to you. Even mine." Selin nodded and hugged her tightly. Ashwake stepped forward and offered Caela a fresh shard, one cut from the vault itself. "To remember us by." Caela took it and placed it beside her lantern's flame. It sparked, blue and gold. Then she turned. Up the steps. Out through the mist. Toward the horizon. Her story, now etched into the vault. Her light, now carried in others. And the archive, somewhere out there, waiting for her return. Weeks passed. Caela journeyed along unfamiliar coasts, lighting small lanterns in quiet hamlets where memory had grown thin. The vault's shard at her side glowed faintly each time a story was rekindled. One night, while resting near a starlit shore, she found a folded page wedged in her satchel, written in careful, unfamiliar script. The flame does not only remember. It listens. Below, a mark, the sigil of a keeper's eye, inverted. She'd never seen it before. And yet, the shard dimmed slightly in its presence. Troubled, she turned inland, toward the forgotten paths that once led to keeper watchposts. Deep within the overgrown ruins of an old archive outpost, Caela discovered that not all lanterns had gone out. Some burned unnaturally, white-hot and silent. They did not respond to her light. In the lowest vault, she found a broken shelf filled with names that had never been carved in the hall. Forgotten on purpose. Among them, a word scratched deep into the stone, excision. And a name. Loran. Caela followed the clues to a hidden mountain hollow, where she finally found him. Loran. Older, distant, and dimmed. His lantern was gone. I gave it up, he said quietly. Not all keepers fall. Some vanish by choice. Caela pressed him. Why was your name left behind? He hesitated, then told her of a secret circle of keepers who once believed in sealing memory too dangerous to carry. They called themselves the Embassy. They broke from the archive, he said. And they are waking up again. Back on the coast, Caela's path crossed with a girl holding a lantern that seemed to absorb light instead of casting it. The girl said nothing, only watched. As Caela approached, her own flame dimmed. Her shard from the vault grew cold. The girl whispered, "He is coming. And he remembers everything you chose to forget." Then she vanished. A storm swept the sea that night. From the cliffs of an unlit isle, Caela saw a vessel unlike any she had known, black sails, no lantern, yet moving like a flame. And at its helm stood a silhouette. Ashwake. But different. Whole. And wrong. Caela's lantern pulsed in alarm. Something had taken his memory, reforged it, and returned it. She whispered, "Not Ashwake. Ashwoken." And the storm screamed.